But time now for us to change tracks completely. I understand that joining us now, we have the author of the Modi Doctrine, the Foreign Policy of India's Prime Minister. I'm talking about Dr. Sreeram Chaulia. He's Professor and Dean, Jindal School of International Affairs, O.P. Jindal Global University. Professor Sreeram, welcome to Lunch Money. First question I really want to ask you is that you seem to be linking the Prime Minister to a more positive business environment. Give us a sense as to how you are looking at this whole interplay between him as a Prime Minister as well as what's happening on the ground here.
Thank you, Fatima. Yes, the Prime Minister has revolutionized commercial diplomacy for India. I think one of the whole chapters of my book is about how he has remolded India's image in international financial and economic circles, and how he has turned around India's poor perception as a place where it's terrible to do business and where there's too many obstacles and red tape and all this. So in a way, what he has done through his outreach efforts, especially with CEOs of global multinational corporations, is to present a positive picture of India and to bring them here. So the record levels of FDI that we have witnessed in the last 2 years is well documented in my book, and it's part of Prime Minister Modi's strategy to enhance India's overall power, which includes economic attraction to the rest of the world. So he has done that phenomenally well, not just through domestic reforms, but also by making a very good sales pitch externally. So his ability to communicate and convince investors around the world think of India as a place for opportunity is phenomenal, and that's what I have outlined in this book.
So if we were to ask you about the specifics of this outreach of Prime Minister Modi that is resulting in a bump up in FDIs into India, what would be those 4 or 5 key initiatives that he's undertaken that have resulted in this?
Well, first of all, he makes sure that there is a CEO forum wherever he travels. And in the process, he, I think, has created number of new ideas. For example, there is the notion of a special window, which clears inward investment faster. He's created that for the Japanese. He's done that for the UAE sovereign wealth funds. So he's been able to showcase India as a land of opportunity where the state is actually facilitating foreign investors rather than impeding them. That's been critical. What else? He has also, in many ways reached out to them by making them feel comfortable about coming to India as, not a land of snake charmers. And, so in fact, if you see, he has remade India's image as a technologically savvy and adept nation that's ready to receive and which is open to foreign investors. He keeps saying that we are the most open, fastest growing economy in the world, and that's true. I mean, the level of comfort that's increased is tremendous. Of course, people are still hedging their bets. They want to see more from him. But the point is, in these 2.5 years, we have to give him credit because it's only because of his factor that the India story has turned around. We were once being counted as part of the fragile 5, but now we have been counted as the fastest growing economy. And that means a lot, even for foreign governments, for sovereign wealth funds, private investors, for all of them, rating agencies, World Economic Forum. He's actually touched on all the key nerve centers that determine the flows of global capital. And he has specifically targeted the ones that are interested in Asia, interested in emerging markets, and has really tried to tap them. And that's all credit to him because he's shown that commercial acumen that perhaps comes only to a Gujarati. And I've shown this how his origins and his rise in politics are linked to this ability to hark back to India as a commercial nation that has always had pride in being a trading and seafaring country.
Okay, Professor Chaulia, just a quick point here, because, we've sort of been talking about how he has really sort of put India on the map as an investment destination as well. We have also seen how other economies in the last couple of years have definitely sort of slowed down. India happens to be, even amongst the emerging markets, better placed than any of the other countries. So how much credit should we actually be giving the Prime Minister for the fund flows that are actually taking place at this stage? And also, I'd like to ask you a follow-up on that is some of the countries that you're talking about, what are the real turnarounds that you've seen in terms of investing into India?
Well, leadership matters increasingly for global business. They need to have confidence in national leaders. Unfortunately, a lot of these emerging market economies with whom we have been bracketed have flagged in giving that confidence. There are too many corruption scandals and, infighting among ruling parties. Look at a country like South Africa or Brazil. They are in shambles. But India is flying high because Mr. Modi has been able to hold the ship. He's been able to show that there is stability here, that there's a government with a majority, and that there's one which is decisive and instrumental in bringing about transformation in the lives of ordinary people, which in turn increase the purchasing power and the attraction of India as a giant market of 1.3 billion people. So I think that has been critical. Leadership does count. Political leadership is always expected by business tycoons, and I think that's what they've seen in India and have invested in it. Other countries are unfortunately not doing so well. It's partly because of the leadership failure. So we have to give credit where it's due. I mean, there are some things which are basic and fundamental about India, which perhaps always will be attractive. But the point was, if you recall what was happening from 2010 to 2014, it was a disaster. So he's turned it around in the last couple of years, and that's what we need to be seeing more of it. And that's how we can continue to benefit from global flows, because at the end of the day, for Make in India, for manufacturing, for employment, for poverty reduction, for all these basic developmental agendas of Prime Minister Modi, he needs external support. And that's how his foreign policy has been designed in a way so that it brings benefits to India's people, but also creates value for outside investors. So it's like a win-win situation. So that's what he says, come Make in India. I think this is the most exciting time for India to be looking up in an economic sense in a long, long time.
Does he have a question? Chaulia, also, just a little bit in terms of your insights on ease of doing business in India and how that has changed.
I think the main point Prime Minister Modi has done is to say that you come and tell me what is specifically hampering you and I'll clear the hurdles for you. Earlier, there was a kind of a generic thing and there was not much of an interest. People would say, well, if people want to come to India, they better adhere to our norms and rules and regulations, which were really Byzantine. What he has done is he has an empathetic ear to investors, and he says, listen, tell me, in this particular state, in this region, if you're facing a hurdle, I'll try to clear it for you. So at that level, he has also brought the states together. That's a very big domestic reform. There is a kind of a consensus among all the states of India that they need to attract more investment and they must speak in one unison. And this is what I call what he calls the Team India, what I call whole of government approach to commercial diplomacy. So that he has done phenomenally, wherein all the states, no matter who's ruling them, are all together as far as it comes to attracting investment goes. They're even competing with each other in what Prime Minister Modi calls a cooperative federalism. So he has created those incentives and he's enabling states to also strike out on their own to attract foreign direct investment. And all these things matter. I must mention that trade is an area where we need to do more, and I've showed this in the book, Modi Doctrine, that we need to be much smarter in terms of multilateral trade negotiations and also entering into these regional trade blocs, which are happening all over the place. And we need to actually, if you have to really double our exports, which is the Modi government's aim in 5 years, we need to do a lot more in terms of WTO as well as other smaller trading clubs that are happening. But on investment, I think it's a phenomenal success, and that's something that needs to build in the years to come, because it's not a flash in the pan. It's already 2.5 years, and this story is not dying down. This is not something that was created by hype. Prime Minister Modi says that it's more like stagecraft. But my argument in the book, Modi Doctrine, is statecraft with stagecraft, and that's what is necessary in the 21st century to be a successful commercial nation.
Professor Chaulia, thanks very much for having joined us right here on the show. That is Professor Chaulia really talking about his book, and he's also given us some texture in terms of how he sees the Prime Minister has changed foreign policy as well as business into India. Well, that is, of course, a wrap on this edition of Lunch Money.